morning. I'm
Morning.
here with my friend Karmen Fossen. Karmen and I met years ago, probably 17, 18 years ago, but we're not really counting. I met Karmen when I decided that maybe I wanted to get back into business when we moved to Daysland, Alberta. And Karmen was selling her accounting practice because she was off on new adventures. Karmen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Linda. Karmen Fossen. Live in Rocky Mountain House now. I have a new practice here. And yeah, I sold you my cardana accounting in Daysland and moved on to a venture that went sideways. So ended up in Rocky Mountain House and started work here for a CA firm. Worked for them for 8 years and then decided that I've done this before, I can do it again. And here I am. And this is 8 years later. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I like what I do.
So you've been doing it on your own for 8 years after doing it in Daysland as well, or just outside of Daysland. What are some of the advantages to working for yourself as opposed to the CA firm?
Um, so because sometimes there's no advantages to working for yourself. You could work 24 hours a day technically, but some of the advantages are, I mean, my kids, when I had my firm in Daysland, my kids were younger. I had 5 boys and they were younger. They were still in school. I could leave during the day and go to their activities or whatever, but then I'd have to work at night if I needed to meet my deadlines, those kinds of things. So you do have some leeway in time, right? One of the things when I first started my business, I talked to a lot of different people that had their own businesses in their home. And one of the things they said to me, Karmen, was it was easy to forget about work and go do your dishes or your laundry or clean your house or even just go sit outside on the patio if that's what you have. So you had to be very disciplined. And it took me a couple of years to be that disciplined. So advantages, I like the idea that I could go and take in my kids as activities back then. Now I'm a huge gardener. So excuse me. Spring and fall, I do the same thing. I might go out during the day and do my gardening, what needed to be done, and then I work at night. So as long as I'm meeting my deadlines and getting my stuff done, and with all the new technology now too, it makes it easier to work at home.
So when you first started working at home, like I think 20 years ago when you had it at home in Daysland, that was probably a disadvantage because it was like, oh, you don't have a brick and mortar on Main Street attitude with a lot of your clients. Whereas now it's almost like having a brick and mortar is a disadvantage in some regards. Or is it still a disadvantage to be working from home?
No, no, not at all. Even back then, Linda, I had clients that would really enjoyed the fact that I worked from home, because if they couldn't come to me through the 8 to 5, they could come in the evening. I mean, I always made my time available for the client, right? So if I knew I had 6 appointments in the evening, then I would take my time during the day and do something else in the garden, whatever, do my laundry, whatever needed to be done. So it was a time management thing. And it was also my clients like the idea that they could call and get an evening appointment or an early morning appointment for that matter, or meet me somewhere. They like that. And here is even better. I call myself a traveling accountant. I don't want people coming to my home. Two reasons. It's not that big. My home isn't that big. I have a small office. Excuse me. I have and I don't want to get the insurance I would need to have people coming here. So I go to them, and you have no idea how much simpler that is and how much easier it is for the clients and even for me, because if I'm missing something, we're right there. We're already at their home. They can find it for me. So, I don't spend hours and hours there. Usually I go in, go through the stuff that they're going to give me, or we talk or whatever. And most of my clients now are pretty computer savvy. A lot of them are on QuickBooks Online, or on the online deal. So we get it going, we take a look and do it remotely. So no, I like how this works. Yeah, always have.
So QuickBooks Online is sort of your choice of quick bookkeeping software, is it?
It is, yeah, for sure. I mean, QuickBooks Desktop was my go-to for a long time, but that QuickBooks Online has been upgraded and updated so much. It's a really awesome program. I mean, there's always still bugs in it or whatever, but yeah. But no, the way it works, I can send requests through it. I can fix problems that clients have without leaving my office. So it's really good.
And so the advantage for the client is they can scan their receipts into it. Am I correct?
That's correct. They can put an app on their phones. I mean, and there's very few people that don't have a smartphone anymore. So they can put an app on their phone. They just take pictures and it automatically uploads it to QuickBooks. So yeah, so it
And
works
so
really
what,
well.
sorry, so once it's uploaded to QuickBooks, then you need somebody to categorize it. Am I correct? But you
Right.
don't have to keep the paper anymore. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. However, I tell my clients, because everything is still in its infancy, I still tell them to keep the
Mhm.
receipts in a shoebox if that's where they want to keep them. But just to keep them, right? Should there ever be a question about it? But
Mhm.
yeah, categorizing is easy. They can do that if they know what they want. And I have a lot of clients that do, tell me, well, this was for meals and this is what it was for. And lots put notes, like you got lots of room to put notes under your receipts and categorize it. Tell me if you have 2 or 3 bank accounts, or a bank account and a credit card that you use, you can tell it where it's coming from, like what you use, the credit card or whatever. Lots of times the program itself will pick up where it's came from. So yeah. And if they don't do that, then I can go in and take a look and categorize it and make sure the tax is right and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I
Now
really
I've heard payroll is a nightmare on QuickBooks Online, or QBO as it's more commonly known. Is that just that it's a different than what people are, or is it a bit of a challenge?
they've spent programmers have spent the last probably 6 months updating and upgrading their payroll. So it was a nightmare for sure. Absolutely, I'm not going to deny that. But now there's so many things you can do in there. So for instance, I have one of my clients has 12 different pay rates, right? So with 12 different pay rates, and some of them are this and some of them are that, plus they also reimburse um, on different expenses and stuff. We're able to do that. We're able to put in 12 pay rates. We're able to put in different reimbursements for different employees. So it has come a long way. It was a nightmare, but it has come a long way. So, and they've actually, I haven't looked at the new one, but they've got a new update on the payroll as well. So, yeah.
And the electronic programs, the online programs like QBO, they allow you to import your bank statements and your Visa statements direct in, reducing errors, reducing the cost of keep of creating the reports. So that's a huge advantage to any small business owner, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's huge. It's huge for us too. Like as an accountant or a bookkeeper, it's huge for us because we get what came from the bank, right? And so there's no chance of us entering a receipt twice. right? Or, well, it does happen, but there are fixes for that. And then, and you're told, like, I mean, it pretty much does your reconciliations for you. That's another, time saver, is the reconciliations, right? Especially if someone has 4 bank accounts, right? It does foreign currencies. So I mean, it would all be in your setups, but it does foreign currencies. It's, yeah, like it just, it takes me half the time it used to take me, to do a month of, well, actually, I would say 1/10 the time to do a month of bookkeeping on QBO if they've uploaded their receipts and the bank is attached, connected. You bet. So 1/10 of the time it used to take me.
So with our new venture here with coaching people, the one thing that I'm constantly on about is invoice on time, invoice quick, but know what your expenses are. And so this allows you to have weekly reports, monthly reports that are up to date, as opposed to the old bookkeeping style where, I'd watch my dad. He would, a year and a half later, he'd have the ledger out and they'd be writing in the ledger. And that doesn't help you make business decisions at all.
You can't make good decisions without being updated constantly. Even when I did paper bookkeeping, it was really important to only be 30 days behind, right? Always on my clients to get their paperwork into me as soon as possible so that we could catch it up so they could make good decisions. And I know that works. I've seen clients go from having to always beg the bank for a loan to the bank phoning them and saying, hey, did you guys need some money? Right. It's very important, and it improves your cash flow too. Having cash flow, because your business could be awesome, like great business, but if you have $30,000 sitting on your receivables that are in your 90-day, there's your cash flow. You can't do anything unless you have that money, right? And the bank is not going to loan you or give you an overdraft on a 90-day receivables list. They're just not, right? They'll do it on your current list, but not on a 90-day over receivables list. So getting the bookkeeping done in a very timely manner is very important, like to every business, not just this business or that business, but every business, right? Even mine. So
yes, but we are those types of people that often ours is the last to get done. Now, I got better at doing ours in the middle, at least, maybe never first, but in the middle, because it was our business. And if we're not responsible enough to look after our business, how can we expect other businesses to look after it? Have you gotten better about that too, Karmen?
I have. You're right. When I first started and when I was in Daysland, and the other thing too was always worried about, because we don't have fixed pricing, right? Like we don't have fixed pricing. So always worried, oh, am I charging too much? Or, and I would get, oh, you didn't charge very much, right? And I'm thinking, okay, I got to start looking at this. So I've spent a year or so trying to figure out, and I've gone to a few different things, looked at a few different people who talk about pricing for accountants. And I've made my own decisions, of course. But yeah, the last day of the month, I'm invoicing and billing. So I'm not waiting anymore. I don't care if anybody else's gets done, mine gets done first. Yeah, for me to keep my business going, I need to do that. So yeah.
And I know you work in other bookkeeping programs. I know you work in one called Sage.
I do.
Is that online as well, or do you do that desktop?
I can go online with it. I find it very cumbersome and heavy to use. So most of my Sage clients are desktop. So and even then the Sage, it's getting really, really expensive for what you get out of that program. And it doesn't have some of the nice features that QBO does. So, but yes, I do work in Sage. I also work in Ag Expert. There's a few others that I do. Easy Accounting, I believe, is the name of one. Farmies is another one that I've worked in. Quicken, but Quicken has gone by the wayside. That was an Intuit program as well. It was a pretty much a personal one where you just enter the checks and deposits and be done with it. So Quicken's gone by the wayside. I don't know what other programs I've used.
I've worked in FreshBooks.
Yeah,
And, you know,
FreshBooks.
if you're a small contractor kind of business, FreshBooks is cheap and it does what you need it to do, right? I don't know if it would work very well for somebody that's a little bit larger, but for small businesses, I know it worked pretty good.
Yeah, I've had a couple that had fresh start. No, what was it? Fresh start? Yeah.
FreshBooks, I think.
FreshBooks.
FreshBooks.
Yeah. Yes, and you're right. It does the job. It's a lot like the Quicken for through Intuit
Right.
was, right? You know, you enter your checks, you enter your deposits. There's not a lot of behind the scenes stuff with that one. So you can't, I think they have a payroll program, but I don't know how good it is. So I've never used it.
Yeah,
So
I've never worked in it either.
yeah.
So I know we've talked about you being a bookkeeper, but you're also a tax preparer. And what else do you do?
Mm. So, well, I do T2s, corporate. I do a lot of corporate. I don't do reviews. I only do compilations. However, I am got a firm in town that if I have a client that needs a review done, I can get it done. I do, well, of course, any of your government stuff, WCB, ROEs. I've even become an office for one of the clients that I have. I prefer not to do that. It's a bit of a time consuming thing, but maybe only 2 or 3 days a week or 2 or 3 days a month. Sorry. So there's very little I don't do. I've done when it comes to accounting, right? Like I've done compilations, T2s, T1s, T3s, T4s, T5s. I use caseware. I work with case view. So yeah, I do all of those things. I'm a full service accounting firm. So yeah.
That's great. And are you growing? Have you kind of,
I'm kind of at the point where I think I mean, I take on new clients, only referrals, been burned a few times on walk-ins. So don't do them, but I do referrals. So if one of my client refers somebody else to me, I will take them on. So yeah, and I'm not looking to grow and get huge. I'm a one person office. I have one girl that comes in 1 day a week and does my admin stuff. Mailing, photocopying, filing, that kind of stuff. But other than that, I do all the rest. And so I'm happy where I'm at. Like it keeps me busy all day. I mean, I can work 16 hours a day if I wanted to, but that's the other thing too, is I try to, when I'm in my office, I try to shut her down about 4:30, 5 o'clock. Otherwise I could be here till 10 or 11 at night. But you have to be pretty, how do you call it? Disciplined. There you go. You have to be disciplined. You have to decide what time you're going to start in the morning, what time you're going to finish in the day, right? Or how many hours you're going to put in. So like I said, because I can leave during the day and go do something else, but I have to make up that 4 hours or whatever I left to do. I have to make that up at night, right? Or make sure I hit my deadlines.
so one of the things that's foremost in my mind now, and I'm out of the accounting world, is these CERB and CEBA loans are coming due that businesses got during COVID. Is there real concern that this could really impact a lot of businesses? What have you heard in the market?
Well, two things happen here. First of all, they've extended it again another year. So now you've got till 2024 to pay it back. The reason for that is because at least 80% of people that took the CERB loans, right, weren't going to be able to pay them back. and that means that they'd be into a more or a loan, right, at 5%, right? And it was going to be that was going to be an issue. You were going to see a lot of doors close on a lot of businesses. So the government, being smart, said, we're going to give you another year. Quite honestly, my feelings about that totally is that should be a forgiven loan altogether. There should be no having to pay it back at all. So some of those people are still using it. Some have been trying to save enough to pay it back, right? And some have paid it back already, right? Those ones that have paid it back already didn't need it to begin with. Does that make
Sometimes, but
sense?
it maybe got them through a tough spot.
It's a
I know some
possibility.
people
Yeah.
that really needed it, but they made it a priority for them to pay that back and not do some other things in their business. But I agree that there were people that probably didn't need it. They didn't need it desperately, or maybe they just needed it for the short term and then could pay it back.
Right.
So,
So I had a couple of my clients who are able to pay it back now, right? And yes, they needed it in the short term, and actually within a year they were able to pay it back. Two things. They wanted to pay it right away, and I said, no, hold off. It's an interest-free loan. Put the money into a company savings account, not into an investment, but into a company savings account, and leave it sit there. I know of at least one client who has done that right from the start, as soon as they had the money to pay it back, and has made well over $1,300 in interest on it. So, they've kind of did themselves a favor by not paying it back right away.
well, so if they pay it back, excuse me, if they pay it back, they can't borrow it again. So,
That's correct.
they maybe needed it for the short term, but we're still suffering the effects of COVID. Businesses for sure are still reeling from those effects of being closed down, and just supply issues is another big, huge thing. Yeah. So if they pay that loan back and then they need it next month, they wouldn't have the ability to get it. And the bank still may not lend them that money because circumstances haven't improved that much. So I think giving that advice to hold on to it until you have to pay it back is really good. Do businesses need to do anything, or this is automatic and they should be hearing from their lending institutions?
My understanding is that they'll be hearing from their lending institutions. So, of course, the wording is always if you're eligible or if you qualify. So there's very few that don't qualify, I believe. So you'll be hearing from your lending institution about what they'll do for you as far as that CERB loan goes. So yeah, I know some have already got their letters, some haven't yet. So, but yeah, you've got till December of 2024 now. They had it, actually, they were going to January 16th of 2024. I don't know what made them change their mind so quickly, but within a week they had extended it to the end of December of 2024.
Yeah.
So,
And I know organizations like CFIB, Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, really were going after this whole loan and being paid back, and how it was going to affect so many small, medium-sized businesses, that I think that was possibly one of the reasons that they decided to extend it.
I totally agree. I mean, there are lobbyists on our part, like on our retail and businesses in general. There was a lot of businesses that were made to shut down that really didn't need to, right?
Yes.
And so CFIB is a good one. They go to bat for us,
Yeah.
and that's the lobbying part of it. We don't do that, but they do, and
Yes.
we end up being the benefactors of it. So
Yes.
yeah.
Huge. And not only do they go to bat for us, they have a lot of support services for small independent businesses, that when you just don't know where to go for some advice or information, their membership fee is very small and they have a wealth of knowledge.
They do. Yeah. I have a couple clients that are members of the CFIB, and I know one of them that has used their services, a lot actually. So it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So
Well, Carmen, I've really enjoyed our chat. Would you come back and chat with us again?
I will. You bet.
Okay. Thanks very much, Carmen. Carmen Fossen with Cardana Accounting.
Bye, Linda.
Bye-bye.